So sometimes while you're browsing the newest season of anime releases, you might notice something, or maybe notice a lack of something. That being the series that you were really excited to watch just isn't included among the list of new releases. It turns out that there's lots of anime that just gets announced and then goes missing. You're told that this is happening soon and then nothing. Not only that, updates about its production are practically non-existent, so you're left completely in the dark about how it's coming along, or when you'll expect to finally watch it, if you'll get to watch it. So you're left waiting and waiting, and then when you finally do get an update, it's telling you that it's still not quite ready yet and won't be for a while longer. Its release date has changed from coming soon to TBA. Too bad, arsehole. Or even worse, it's an update announcing the project has just been completely cancelled. So all your waiting was completely for naught. If you're lucky. If you're not lucky, it just stays in development hell, and every few years you get a, "Trust me bro, it's really coming, we're very committed to its release." It really seems nowadays we do more waiting than actually watching. So I wanted to take a look at a few anime and anime adjacent projects that were announced and then for whatever reason just didn't happen. And then maybe if I can, find out what happened and where they are now. And first I want to stipulate exactly what I mean by missing. I don't mean lost media, like that 2007 Phantom Blood OVA. That came out, it was real, people saw that. We're just not allowed to see it anymore. Nor am I on about those more urban legendy ones, like Go for a Punch. I think it's safe to say at this point that that probably doesn't exist. Actually, that's a lie, it does exist. You can buy it on like £1 on Steam. I also don't mean series that people kind of assumed were going to get a season 2 because the first season was received so well, like No Game, No Life. The author of the light novel really wants a season 2 to happen, but as far as I know, nothing's actually been said that it's going to happen. What I mean quite simply is a project that was announced and then just didn't come out. Part 1. Cancelled. The Yuri on Ice movie. We're actually going to start with one that recently reached its conclusion, that being the Yuri on Ice movie Ice Adolescence. Ice Adolescence was announced back in 2017 as a prequel to Yuri on Ice, which aired that previous year. And if you don't know what that is, it's this really well-received original series about ice skating that involved no Yuri, actually. It was completely the opposite. And it had this weird thing about its airing time, which is why no one could make out, which turned out to be complete bullshit, by the way. But regardless, lots of people really liked this series and were super hyped for the movie's release, which was slated for 2019. In 2018, we got some teaser stuff, including some movie visuals and this pretty cool poster. But the 2019 release date was eventually postponed. And in 2020, a teaser for the movie was shown. It seemed like we were actually going to see gay ice skaters again. And then, nothing. This happens a lot, by the way. There's no, like, pre-going dark announcement, no hints of a progress update or report. Lots of these things just kind of stop any kind of announcement. And then it was nothing until April 2024 when the project was formally cancelled. You can read the full statement on the website if you're so inclined, but this pop-up pretty much just says the movie was scrapped due to various circumstances. I'll let you have a guess what they were. So it's not really missing per se, but 7 years is a really long time just to have, 3 updates? If you started learning ice skating the time the movie was announced, you could be performing at a near Olympic level by the time the movie was cancelled. You could just have done Yuri on Ice Adolescence yourself. And this was a really unfortunate end to Yuri on Ice. If you read blog posts about it, this movie meant a lot of things to a lot of people, but it meant more to its creators. The co-creator Mitsuru Kubo back in 2020 talked about working on the movie at home alone, because she just really wanted people to see it. That's a level of dedication that I can only hope to have a fraction of. And we won't get to see it, and that sucks. And there's really no other way to say it. It sucks that we won't get to see it. It sort of gives me a really deep... That's too dramatic, I'm not going to fucking say that. 2. Part 2. No new information. The Saga of Tanya the Evil, Season 2. So, back again to 2017, we got an adaptation of the light novel series Yojo Senki, or Saga of Tanya the Evil. It's a story about a guy who becomes a small, angry girl and vows to fight God in a fictional World War II Europe. And I'm sorry, I really tried to get into the light novel, but I just couldn't. It's very military fetish. But if that's your thing, you're probably one of the many people who watched and enjoyed the first season. And if you were one of those people, you were probably pretty hyped 4 years later when Studio Nut announced the second season would be coming. 3 years after that announcement, let's see what we've got. A website that doesn't go anywhere, and that's it. Doesn't encourage too much confidence, does it? Now, honestly, I don't think this one's too bad. I think a season 2 will come out eventually. It's not like Tanya's been completely forgotten or anything. She appeared in the Isekai Quartet series, and then there was a sequel movie that came out in 2019. But to not have any updates about season 2 for quite a while, that's what's got the fans of the series kind of rattled. There's lots of speculation about when it's supposed to be coming out, but I can't find any hard sources saying exactly when it's come out. Like this one, I'm sorry, mate, that isn't the source. Logic without facts is just speculation. And speculation is enemy propaganda. The author of Yojo Senki, Carlo Zen, likes to talk about the state of Season 2 sometimes in the afterword of his light novels. As of now, the English versions of the 2 newest volumes aren't actually available, so I don't know if there's any information about Season 2 in them, but I feel like someone would have said something if there was. He does mention Season 2 in Volume 12, but that was back from 2020, so that's before the official announcement of Season 2. And he doesn't say much because of an NDA. So I think the only thing you can really stipulate from this is that the second season has probably been in production longer than 2021. That's what I think anyway, just because of the way he writes and talks about it. It almost seems like he thinks Season 2 was already announced. But 4 years and no real update, that's nothing compared to the next one. This next anime was announced over 30 years ago, and as of 2024, is still coming soon. And that is Aoki Uru, or Uru in Blue. Part 3. It's coming. Trust me, bro. Uru in Blue was a planned sequel to the 1987 movie Royal Space Force, Wings of... I'm not even going to try. So go ahead, text-to-speech. Actually, no, fuck that. I don't need a robot to do my job for me. Royal Space Force, Wings of Hominize. There, I did it. It was first announced in 1992 and would involve Hiroyuki Yamaga doing the scripting. It was going to get directed by Hideaki Anno and have Yoshiyuki Sadamoto doing the character designs, as well as also being the chief animator. It was also going to have Masamune Shiro doing the robot and space mech designs. Kazutaka Miyatake also contributed to the mech designs as well. Sorry. If you ask me, that's a pretty good set of boys. The project went into production almost immediately and had a lot of neat concept art created, but the following year, due to financial issues, Uru in Blue would cease production, and the studio would move on to something else called Evangelion or something. So the next bit kind of confused me. So my primary jumping off point for information has been Anime News Network. I thought it was at least useful in pointing you in a direction so you could do further research yourself. And in nearly all of the ANN articles about Uru in Blue, it mentions the announcement in 92, the cancellation in 93, and then it talks about revivals in 1998 and 2001, which I think is worded a bit dishonestly. In 1998, there wasn't a revival of the movie, it was a CD release called the Frozen Designs Collection, which was a compiled collection of all the work done on Uru in Blue before it was canned. And the 2001 claim, I think it's a lie, or it's just very exaggerated, because if you check the article, the ANN article, it links to a different article about the 40th Japanese Science Fiction Convention, where they just say that Uru in Blue seems set to be produced and is almost official, which isn't a revival. But if you check another article about the Gunbusters sequel announcement, it mentions the convention, but only that there was serious indication about Gunbusters and Urim Blue being produced. And that article is from 2004, and it doesn't mention anything about the 2001 article. So I looked at Non-Techie Memoirs, which is about the start of Gaimax, and while it is mostly about Eva, there is a section about Urim Blue in it, which mentions the cancellation in 93, nothing about 98 or a re-revival in 2001, even in the section that's talking about the convention. And if you check Wikipedia's source for the 2001 revival, it's just the ANN article I mentioned. So I wouldn't really bank on a 2001 claim. I think it's kind of odd that Anime News Network would keep saying that a 2001 revival happened, and then cite themselves where they don't really say that it happened. But honestly, the convention was over 20 years ago at this point, so I'm not really gonna get hung up on it. Because in 2013, on Facebook, they recommitted their pledge to finish Urim Blue and announced a pilot film, which is really weird because I thought it was already about pilots. And then the following year in Anime Festival Asia, they showed off Urim Blue again. And then, in 2017, they re-announced Urim Blue, saying that it had started production in June of that year. And then finally, in 2018, it was announced that it would be released in 2022, which didn't happen. Wow, that was a lot of false starts. Talk about a tease, huh? Urim Blue? More like Uru for some blue balls. Now this is only the footnotes. The full story of Urim Blue is a lot longer. The production was very troubled. There's way more to it. It was plagued with financial issues, over-ambitions, lawsuits, corporate mergers, all centered around one very dedicated man. It's a whole video in on itself, which may be something we can look at another time. But damn, 30 years and nothing to show for it aside from a few art pieces? That's rough. So where is it now? Well, according to this article from this year on Nikkei, holy shit, it's come full circle. It's still being worked on. So, any day now. But while we're waiting, let's talk about the whole reason I started to look at missing things in the first place, and also why I said anime adjacent projects at the start. And that is part 4. Completely missing. Umineko, the Gold Edition. So, back in 2007, during Comiket 72, the Doujin Circle 7th expansion released their newest addition to the When They Cry visual novel franchise, Umineko no Nako Koro ni, or When the Seagulls Cry. It kind of acted as a spiritual successor to their wildly successful Higurashi no Nako Koro ni. Umineko is this pretty complex tale about murder, witches, maybe not murder, maybe not witches, definitely demons, unless they're not demons, and lots of gold. It really depends who you ask. But to keep the plot simple and digestible, like tiny bombs slipped into your meal, it's about what happened to the Ushiromiya family, who travelled to the island of Rokkenjima and were never seen again. Or what possibly happened to them. The series at its core is about mystery novel tropes and the nature of the truth and how it can be distorted by word of mouth and erode over time. Also, a child gets slapped a bunch of times. Umineko became an instant visual novel classic. If you look at any list of the best visual novels of all time, I bet you'll find Umineko somewhere on that list. And I really do recommend it if you have a spare 50 hours lying around. Don't watch the anime, it's bad and stops just before the best character comes into it, but the opening and ending themes are really good. It's like where all of the budget went to. So what does this have to do with anything being missing? So in 2018, a video was released. It was a 20-minute long video, barely a fraction of Umineko's story, covering the moments in episode 1 where the family find corpses in an old storehouse. But it wasn't just footage of the visual novel, it was completely different. The bog-standard VN text box was gone. The UI was far more stylish, with dialogue floating along the screen. There was these added ambient effects that really heightened the tones of the scenes. The character sprites weren't just popping into frame and jiggling when it was their turn to say something. They were given these dynamic shots and fade between sprites that really gave them more life, and there were also the far superior 2010 PS3 sprites. And this whole thing was fully voiced in English, something that has never happened before. It was certainly like no visual novel I've ever seen before. I thought it was phenomenal. I can't really express how impressed I was when I saw this for the first time. It seemed more like a movie, and it drew me right back into Umineko and reminded me why I loved the series. Included as well was an English version of the opening from the anime, sung by Amalie, who looks like this now, and they also gave Beatrice lips for some reason. And all of this was called Umineko, the Gold Edition. It was a collaborative effort between 7th Expansion, Manga Gamer, Sound Cadence Studios, and the translator group called The Witch Hunt. And it was coming to Kickstarter soon, with new content promised, a podcast series, and finally, real-life Umineko merchandise. And all of this was going to be a free update. The Golden Witch sent me a letter. Damn fucking right, sign me up. The Kickstarter was slated for November 7th, 2018, and I was gonna contribute. See, I have a policy of never supporting anything. Ever. But I was willing to bend that so I could hear Beatrice call Battler an idiot in red, in English. But I didn't get a chance. No one did. Because the Kickstarter was delayed until the 14th of November. And then it was delayed once more. And that was it. The Kickstarter never came. 2 years later, the promotional videos were removed, with the official Twitter account saying that they can't comment on the status of the project. And while the website is still active, there have been no updates. It's well and truly just missing. And since then, other Umineko related stuff has been released as recently as this year. So the idea of ever seeing Gold Edition come to fruition, to me anyway, is slowly fading away. And to make things just a little bit worse, Witch Hunt, the translator group who have been invaluable in bringing Umineko to the West, well, if you go to their website, this happens, and I don't know. It just doesn't seem right. It really is heartbreaking, but at least at the end of the day, we can still go and play Umineko to completion. Which is more than I can say for the other When They Cry visual novel. Final part. Godzilla really came. That will make sense, trust me. So in 2018, 7th Expansion announced the newest installment to When They Cry, titled Ciconia no Nako Koro ni, or When the Storks Cry. It's set hundreds of years after World War III, which splintered the countries of the world into new alliances and pacts. It centers around a group of children called Gauntlet Knights, augmented Iron Man kids who were being used as weapons of war for their respective countries in lieu of soldiers and armies. The powers that be don't see them as people, they see them as tools to push their secret world-controlling agendas. The first part was released on October 4th, 2019, aptly titled To You, The Replaceable Ones, with part 2 set to be released sometime in May 2020. But of course this never happened, obviously. The creator, Rushikyo7, announced a delay just before part 2's release, eventually going into an indefinite hiatus. There have been a multitude of reasons as to why, but they are all scattered. He said he wanted to finish outside work, he said something about a mass illness halting production or something, and more recently he's talked about current international conflicts making him not want to write a story about international conflicts. But there is something that he's said that really shows his feelings towards continuing writing Ciconia, which is this. It's not my job as a fiction writer to tell the story of reality. The situation is such that if I had written about Godzilla, and then Godzilla really ended up coming. He's not literally talking about Godzilla. He's not really in the story. It's a proverbial gorilla whale. What he means by this is that something he was writing about in Ciconia got a bit too close to real life. It's like he was writing a story with Godzilla in it, and then Godzilla started attacking the city outside. What he's referring to, I don't really know. In our current international climate, we can look at the story of Ciconia, a story about international war, and see why he might be uncomfortable writing about it. So we're left with a cryptic answer and another incomplete missing story. It seems that around the 2020-ish time frame, a lot of these projects hit a snag in their production. I wonder what could have happened around that time that would have made it so difficult to do anything. I guess we'll never know. So it's story time. So I bought this. It's Makima. It's called the By Cute Bunnies edition. There's like a bunch of anime girls are getting these kind of like bunny outfits, and the only difference is that if you look here, this is actual material. It actually feels like a stocking when you're squeezing her thigh. And I saw this in a claw machine in Akihabara when I went there once. And I saw it and I really wanted it, but I convinced myself, like, no, don't get it. You're not going to win, you're just going to be wasting a ton of money. And then the following week, I just couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, I need it. Like, I really want this. I need it. So I went back to Akihabara and I went into a store and I found this one on sale for 1,600 yen. If you want to know which store, go and watch the Akihabara video I made, the Akihabara strip one, because I say exactly which store it is. I show that store exactly in that one. And then a few months later, I was in Akihabara again, and I saw this exact figure for 12,000 yen. So that is unironically the soundest investment I've made in my entire life. That's it. That's what I'm saying.